20,000 leagues under the sea. And they needed a water tank so they could place the submarine and the giant squid. And then they used the stage for many other films that involved water. For instance, I watched Dick Van Dyke sit in a raft in this very same stage when we were doing the movie Lieutenant Robin Crusoe back in the 60s, I think. And so poor Dick Van Dyke, who was supposed to be stranded out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, was really in this water tank on stage 3. Next. Oh, that's the young kid, Floyd Norman. The year was 1956, and I was a young apprentice in-betweener drawing Donald Duck. Next. Now we move to the 1960s. 60s was a very active and busy time at the Disney studio. Walt Disney was developing exhibits for the World's Fair in New York. He was working on a project up in the High Sierras that he called Mineral King, a project that never happened, by the way. He was also working on Walt Disney World, and the really big deal was his Epcot project, his experimental prototype city of tomorrow. And that was a fascinating concept. Walt Disney actually wanted to build a city down next to his theme park in Orlando, Florida. And it was going to be a honest-to-goodness working city that would pioneer new technologies, new ideas in transportation, just essentially an experimental city to work things out and to make things work better. Epcot, as you know, never happened, and that's because Walt Disney passed away. They built an Epcot, or something they call Epcot, but it's not the Epcot Walt Disney had in mind. He wanted to create a real, thriving, living city where people would live and work and explore new, innovative technologies. I believe if Walt Disney had lived, Epcot would exist today. Also in the 60s, something that affected my life in a major way, I worked on a number of Disney features, but this was one feature I bowed out on. I was not going to work on The Jungle Book because I was working with one of my favorite animators, a man named Ward Kimball, who is one of the 9 Old Men and a Disney legend in his own right. And we were doing some other things, and because I wanted to be an animator, and I was downstairs in the animation department working with Ward, and I got the call from my boss that I would be putting down my animation pencil, going upstairs, because Disney's premier story artist, Bill Peet, had quit the film, and Walt Disney wanted to remake the movie from top to bottom. He wanted to throw out basically everything Bill had done because he felt Bill Peet's version of the Kipling story was way too dark. And Walt wanted a fun film. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to have a good time. And so he essentially wanted to remake The Jungle Book. Well, I was one of the new story artists who was sent upstairs to work on this new version of The Jungle Book. Keep in mind, I was a young animator, had never done story before. I mean, never really professionally. So talk about being thrown into the frying pan or whatever. The heat was really on because we had to keep Walt Disney happy. And so I found myself suddenly developing story for The Jungle Book. I was lucky enough to work with a very great story guy named Vance Gary, and we shared an office. And I asked Vance, well, how do you do this job? Because I was young and new, and he says, oh, just tell a story, make it entertaining, and keep Walt Disney happy. That's all you got to do. Next. A shot of Walt Disney. As I said, Walt was involved in everything, not just cartoon making, but live action as well. And so here he is looking through the camera on one of the live action films. Next. Another shot of Walt on the soundstage. As you know, Walt Disney did all of his own introductions for the TV show. That meant Walt had to go out on stage 1 or stage 2 and do the intros for his TV shows. A task that he was always anxious to, you know, get it over with, because I think he always felt he had more important things to do than stand in front of a camera. So, but he was good-natured about it, and as you can tell, he was pretty jovial as he takes a break between filming. Next. There's Walt and his old partner, Ub Iwerks. Walt Disney and Ub Iwerks began working together back in Kansas City, Missouri, and eventually Ub followed Walt out to Hollywood. And a lot of the early Mickey Mouse animation was done by Ub Iwerks. Ub was also an incredible inventor and innovator. He developed a lot of the technologies that Disney Studios, that really distinguish the Disney Studio from other studios. His work in special effects even caught the attention of other filmmakers. People like Alfred Hitchcock and others would come to Disney so they could use the talents of Ub Iwerks to do their special effects work. Next. Walt, the woman on the left, fantastic woman artist named Mary Blair. And I should talk about a real Disney legend. Mary Blair was an incredible artist and color stylist. Not only did she work and influence the color on many of the Walt Disney films, but she worked on the theme parks. Her influence is seen in Disneyland, Walt Disney World. If you've ever taken the Small World ride, you know, it's a small world. What you're seeing is the work of Mary Blair. Next. This was a fun time. Special effects film that we did in the 1960s, The Absent-Minded Professor, and he had this flying car. And we were really pleased that we were able to make an automobile fly through the magic of special effects. Next. Walt was very approachable, and on occasion he might be stopped by anybody and say, "Pardon me, Mr. Disney, can I speak with you?" And Walt would stop whatever he was doing and talk to you, no matter who you were. You didn't have to be a big shot. You didn't have to be important. If you wanted to talk